It's 4 in the morning, pitch black. Every house on your street is asleep. Every house, except for the figure moving slowly down the middle of the road. They stop right outside your house. They tip their head back, look up at your bedroom window, and slowly raise a long pole toward the glass. Now, before you panic, this person isn't a burglar. They are not there to rob you or hurt you. They might actually be the only reason you still have a job by the end of the week. But who they are, what they are hiding in their coat pocket, and the one impossible question that haunted every last one of them for 100 years add up to maybe the strangest forgotten job in history. Because there was a time when waking up on time wasn't your problem to solve. It was somebody else's profession, and it only gets stranger from here. We are talking a secret weapon loaded with dried peas, a running feud, furious neighbors and their buckets of water, and a riddle that, for over a century, nobody could ever answer. So, let's rewind, because to understand who was stopping at that window, you first have to understand what happened to the people who didn't wake up on time. To get why this existed, you have to picture Britain in the 1800s. The Industrial Revolution is roaring. Factories, miles, coal mines, shipping docks, all of them running on human bodies that had to be in place before sunrise. And the factory did not care if you were tired, show up late, and the gates were already locked, miss your shifts, and you lost the pay, or you lost the job to any one of the 100 people waiting to take it. So, oversleeping wasn't an inconvenience, it was a genuine threat to how you fed yourself. There was just one problem. Almost nobody owned a clock. A mechanical alarm clock had existed since the late 1700s, but for decades, it was a luxury item, far too expensive for an ordinary worker. So, picture the situation. An entire city of people who had to wake up before dawn, on time, every single day, with no way to actually tell the time. That gap between needing to wake up and being unable to, somebody turned into a career. They were called knocker-uppers. Yes, that's the real name. And yes, that phrase means something very different today, which caused genuine confusion later on. Hold that thought. A knocker-upper was quite literally a human alarm clock. Every morning, long before sunrise, they walked the dark, empty streets and tapped on your window at the exact time you'd paid for. Their tools were simple: a long, light pole, often bamboo, to reach the upstairs window, and a shorter, heavier stick for knocking on doors down at street level. But tapping a pole on glass has a weakness. The sleepers upstairs, they are groggy, they don't stir, so the more inventive knocker-uppers upgraded their arsenal. Some of them started carrying a pea-shooter. They'd load it with dried peas and fire them straight at your bedroom window until you woke up. Sit with that for a second. Your morning alarm was a stranger in the street snipping your window with dried peas in the dark, and people actually paid for the privilege. And these weren't sloppy operators. No, they had standards. A knocker-upper didn't just tap once and wander off, because what if you rolled over and fell back asleep? So they'd stand there, tapping away until they actually saw you get up and signal back through the glass. No signal, no leaving. They stayed until the job was done. To keep track of dozens of clients, each with different start times, customers would chalk their wake-up time on a little slates by the front door. A knocky-board. Monday's shift here, Tuesdays there. An entire scheduling system run on chalk and memory. Now, in the early days, this trade was a lot louder, banging on doors, ringing handbells in the street, which created one obvious problem: the neighbors, the ones who did not need to be awake at 3 in the morning. They made their feelings known, sometimes by emptying a bucket of water over the knocker-upper's head from an upstairs window, so the whole profession got quieter. Out went the bells, in came the soft pole and the pea-shooter, precision waking, one window at a time, without rousing the entire street. And this was no fringe little job, it was everywhere, and some knocker-uppers became genuine local legends. In London's East End, there was the undisputed queen of the trade, Mary Smith. She rose at 3 in the morning, every morning, worked with her trusty pea-shooter and charged 6 pence a week. Her only real competition was an old man 3 miles away, who did the exact same job, but tapped the upstairs windows with a fishing rod. Mary turned it into a family business. Her own daughter picked up the pea-shooter after her. Down in Dorset, a woman known as Granny Cousins woke the local brewery workers for decades. Up in County Durham, Miss Bowers walked her route every single morning with her dog Jack at her side, waking the miners. And Miss Waters roused 95 households before dawn, and then went and opened up her shop for the day. Notice something? So many of them were women. Many were elderly, an entire hidden workforce, wide awake while the rest of the world slept. Which brings us finally to the one question that has shadowed the whole story from the very start. If the knocker-uppers wakes up the whole town, who wakes the knocker-upper? People at the time were obsessed with it. There was even an old tongue twister that tied itself in knot, asking whether anyone's knocker-upper ever really knocked their knocker-upper. So, what's the answer? It's actually beautifully simple. Nobody did. Knockers-uppers were night owls by trade. Most of them didn't sleep at night at all. They stayed awake through the small hours, worked their dawn route, and then slept through the day. Many of them not waking until around 4 in the afternoon to begin their strange backwards life all over again. They were the people the time forgot awake so that you didn't have to be. And here is the detail that makes the whole thing perfect. One of the most famous knocker-uppers of all, William Crompton of Bolton, woke factory workers for over 50 years, and to make sure he woke up in time to do it, he used an alarm clock. The human alarm clock actually set an alarm clock. And make no mistake, this paid 6 pence a week from one client doesn't sound like much, but spread that across a whole street, a whole route, morning after morning, and it added up fast. One newspaper back in 1850 looked at the business model and flatly called it all profit. No shop, no stock, no overhead, just you, a stick, and a city that desperately needed to wake up. So, where did they all go? The thing standing outside the window got replaced by the thing sitting on the nightstand. As cheap, reliable alarm clocks, many mass-produced across the Atlantic in America, flooded into ordinary homes. Fewer and fewer people needed a human being to tap their glass. As early as 1914, a newspaper was already sounding the alarm, warning that the cheap American clock was killing the entire industry. And slowly it did. The knocker-uppers held on longest in the northern mile towns and mining villages, some of them still walking their routes into the 1950s and beyond. But one by one, the taps at the window went quiet. One last detail, just because it's wonderful. The snooze button didn't even arrive until after the Second World War. So the very first alarm clocks, the ones that put the knocker-uppers out of business, couldn't even give you 5 more minutes. And here is the part worth actually sitting with. For over a century, waking up was a job. It required another human being to stand out in the cold and watch your window until they saw you move. Waking up was something a person did for you. The knocker-upper never really vanished. It just got smaller. It stepped off the street onto your nightstand, and then it slipped into your pocket. That glowing little rectangle you reach for the second your eyes open, it's the same job, the same tap on the glass, just stripped off the person. Except the knocker-upper eventually walked home and left you in peace. Yours never really sleep. It's tapping on the glass all day long. So, the next time your alarm rips you out of a dream at some merciless hour, spare a thought for Mary Smith and her pea-shooter. At least, she stopped once you waved back. Would you rather be woken up by a stranger with a pea-shooter or your phone alarm? Because I'm not sure the phone is winning. Let me know down below.